I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Gladstone City Commission for Monday, July 14, 2014 at 7 p.m. to order. Our first item on our agenda tonight is the invocation. Commissioner Mattinen will lead us in invocation. Please rise.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight. We thank you for the wonderful community you've given us. Thank you for each one that's made the special effort to come out to participate. Father, as we look at the items that we have before us tonight, we would just ask that you would give us your wisdom and come up with the best solutions for our community. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, City Clerk.
Commissioner Bostwick?
Here.
Commissioner Gay?
Here.
Commissioner Mattinen?
Here.
Commissioner Nemechek?
Here.
Mayor Mackey?
Here. I'm sure all the commissioners know, for the public, the city manager is attending a baseball game in Iron Mountain for her son tonight. She sent us a text message, so that is an excused absence. And we will move on to public comment. Mr. Barnhart? No? Yes? Okay, I thought you were going to get up.
Steve. You got to go to the microphone.
Name and address, serial number, all that kind of stuff. No.
Not sure I can remember it from 40 years ago. Okay, I got some comments to make and a request to make.
Steve Adkins of something Minnesota Avenue. What's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, address 1116 Minnesota,
Okay, thanks, Steve.
alias the Adams Family House. For the last 2 years, 4th of July, we get the fireworks going off. This year it was particularly bad. I had to sit up till about 1 o'clock in the morning in my backyard with a hose because the people behind me were shooting off bottle rockets. They were landing on the various roofs in the neighborhood. It's fire danger. It's a fire hazard. I know they're legal to shoot inside the city limits as long as you keep them on your own property. But with the bottle rockets, that's impossible to do. So at that time, I didn't realize that that restriction was in there. I have read the code now and familiar with it, and I didn't realize that I could call public safety on that. But I was wondering if there's any way you guys can limit this stuff so that it doesn't fly over into the neighbor's yard. Firecrackers, the kind that go high in the starbursts, what I'm talking about is the bottle rockets and the mortar bombs, they're called. I lived out in Dodge City for 5 years, and of course it is drier out there this time of year, but across the street they were shooting off fireworks. They wind up, and we helped fight it, caught a hedgerow on fire. The hedgerow ran down between two houses, one house completely destroyed, the other house was not burned to the ground but was totaled. They tore it down, and the garage was damaged. So I'm a little wary on these things. One of these days, the insurance company is going to wake up. They're going to say all the stuff going on here at night, and they're going to raise everybody's rates because of the increased fire danger on that. I'm wondering if we can put a limit on that, because it's impossible. You shoot one of these off, you can't keep it in your yard. So it's going to hurt. Someday we're going to have a fire. Somebody's going to get hurt. House is going to get burned out. I'm very nervous when this happens, what's going on. I don't like it. It's dangerous. I've got a lot of red pine and balsam and cedar in my yard. And no matter how many times you rake it off, there's always some pine needles up in the gutter area and in the eaves and the troughs and in the valleys. The bottle rocket lands on one of those. I don't care if we've had a lot of rain like we have this year or not, they're going to catch on fire and they're going to burn the roof off. It hasn't happened yet, thankfully, and hopefully will never happen. But if it keeps on long enough, it will happen. So I'd like to limit those. We can come up with a change in the rules before somebody gets hurt on these things. Second thing is the aerial bombs. I've got some pretty nice neighbors, and they were enjoying it. They were taking these mortar bombs out into the middle of the street, launching them off for about hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. About every 3 minutes, one of these things would go off. My daughter was up visiting with her family and the 3 dogs, and the dogs were going nuts. The kids couldn't sleep, they're tired. It's 12:30 at night, and these things are still going off. And they had to leave at 5 in the morning. So, and I was talking to a gentleman that lives a couple blocks away. He had to be to work at 4 in the morning, or 5, I forget which. And these things were keeping him awake. You'd just be drifting off of sleep, and the inside of the room would just light up, the windows rattle, and then the concussion hits, and you're wide awake again. Now, I went over and talked to them across the street. They were nice. They said, well, I said, how many more of these things you guys got? Because, and I gave them the reasons. They said, well, we've only got 2 more, and I can live with 2 more. Go ahead, get rid of them, and be done with it. But the people in the back were what I call mini aerial bombs. They weren't the great big fuel air bombs that these other things were, but they were still shaken up, and they went till 2 in the morning. And now that I've read the code, I realize it's legal for these things to go till 2 in the morning. Can we put a time limit on this stuff? Earlier than
The short
2
answer is
o'clock?
yes. But I'd like to go to our public safety director if you feel prepared tonight to answer the questions. Apparently you didn't make a complaint to public safety that night?
I'm sorry, what?
Apparently you didn't make a complaint?
No, I didn't, because I didn't realize that there was a requirement that this stuff be kept on your own property, which is impossible with the bottle rockets. Besides, you hate to call police on your neighbors, because normally they're nice people. And they were having hoot and holler, having a good time back there, and you don't want to bust their chops just for one night. But on the other hand, sitting up till 1:30 in the morning with a fire hose, or with what I call my little fire hose, is kind of silly too.
Well, our ordinance is fairly new, and it came up as a result of some citizen complaints, so, it might need some fine tuning, but I'd like to go to our public safety director for some comment.
We've had, our ordinance was just adopted this year on the fireworks ordinance.
Yep.
And it does place restrictions. There's only 30 days out of the year that you can legally discharge fireworks in the city. That being the 10 recognized national holidays, and then the day before that holiday and the day after. So any other time of the year, if people are lighting off fireworks within the city, we need to be notified, and we'll put a stop to it. Part of our ordinance does have a provision, you alluded to it, where if we can determine that those fireworks are landing on somebody else's property, we can put a stop to it. You're right. Bottle rockets, unless you have a bigger piece of property, are probably going to land somewhere else than where you shoot them off. They don't go straight up and straight down. So we deal with that on a complaint by complaint basis. I do worry as well about the fire hazard with fireworks. We do every year around the 4th of July. Primarily, that's when we have the fireworks being set off in the city. We have had years in the past where we have had some small fires started. No structures that I'm aware of, but we've had some fires at the parks. We've had some fires in some grassy areas. I believe, though, and I'd have to look to I don't want to be quoted 100%, but I believe our time limit is 1 a.m. on those 30 recognized days of the year. We cannot, we're limited by state law as to what is allowed on those 30 days. State law allows us to restrict them every other day of the year except those 30 days. So I don't believe we can place any more of a restriction in terms of the cutoff time other than 1 a.m., which is what the state law thinks, or what the state law says. I may be wrong. It may be 2.
I think it's 2.
I didn't have a chance to look up our specific ordinance, but I can't, but the city can't limit any earlier times than that cutoff time that's set by state law on those dates.
You can't.
Can't make it earlier.
Wow.
it used to be that that local communities could not even, well, we had restrictions on what restrictions we could put in place. The recent changes in the fireworks legislation, like you know, Michigan became a state that allowed many of the consumer-type fireworks. That state law that was enacted allowed us to place restrictions on other times of the year besides the specific time limits and the dates that were set by state law, which is those 30 days. So,
You cannot supersede the state law then.
no, not in that sense. We can't make it more restrictive.
Bummer.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We can't set time limits earlier than that time, as far as I'm aware.
So can maybe you two gentlemen, can you visit with Paul sometime this week and see if there's some more things we might bring back to the commission for our next meeting?
we
Because I
can
know this is
certainly-
new for you.
We can certainly look at it. We did extensively look at it though when we drafted the ordinance and we were complying with the parts of state law. What we need to be aware of though is when it's happening. And I know that night you said you didn't think it was something that you could report to public safety, but you and I used to be neighbors.
Yep.
Give us a call. We'll at least come down there and look at it. And if we can't do anything, either via the noise or the time limits, we'll tell you that. And if we can, we'll do something about it. If there's obvious that there's debris coming down on your property, though, we can put a stop to it.
Yeah, I picked up the bottle rockets for 2 days straight.
Yeah, we can put a stop to that.
You know, Toby on the corner behind where you used to live?
Mhm.
He's still got it. They're still laying up on his roof. So.
We can
had
deal
I-
with that.
Yeah, I thought, I didn't know about that part, and I was made aware that there were new regulations in, and I looked them up, and had I known that, I would,
Yeah.
oh God, I would have called. I hate to do it because, you know, you gotta live with the people and they'll get mad at you, but I would have done it, and I will do it next year, but. so-
Well, there are still several recognized national holidays when fireworks can be set off throughout the year. So
Yeah.
just as a note to the general public, if you have problems, you need to call and we can look into it. But I can certainly take another look at our ordinance. Although when we drafted it, it was comparable to what other communities had in compliance with the new state laws.
You can't change the time limit. Can you limit the type of fireworks?
Not if it's a consumer firework. There's different categories from the state. There's novelty, consumer, and
That's in
display
there.
fireworks. Display fireworks are what the city would set off, or like for the 4th of July main fireworks display.
So my best bet then is on the 4th of July, go visit my kids in Ohio.
Well,
And make
it's
sure your insurance policy is in effect.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that I do get worried about, because if those pine needles ever catch on fire, and they're laying in the the hip roof or whatever, and it's just.
Well, I know your
right
residence
up.
it's pretty heavily wooded there too. So I mean, you do have
Yeah,
that
I've always
concern.
got them. I've got them all the time.
Yeah.
And I've got that old, what I call the blue building behind the house there, and we had some come down on that one. That's an entirely wood building, and I was worried about it.
But we certainly can, I mean, if there's other concerns that come up, we can look at it, adjusting the ordinance, but we just did it within the last year, so I don't know if there's a ton of changes that would, we could address. We can address the complaints, though, that you're talking about.
All right, now, so there's nothing we can do about those aerial bombs that shake the house?
They're considered consumer fireworks, and if they're legal to
Okay.
be sold in Michigan on those 30 days of the year in those certain time periods, as long as they keep them on their property, they're pretty much good to go. If they come off the property, if they land on your property, if they're not consumer grade fireworks and they're display grade, or if it's beyond those dates and time periods, then we can certainly address it.
So they can't launch them from the middle of the street?
They shouldn't, no, because they're allowed to set them off on their own property.
If I remember correctly, our ordinance specifically prohibits using those on public property.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it does, it does. Well, rats.
Well, certainly call us with the concerns and we can look into it, but that's the unfortunate bad news that I have for you tonight.
And so you guys are stymied then also, as far as,
Preempted.
so what we need to do is fire the governor and get somebody else in there.
Well, it's interesting, our state rep just walked in. I think that's incredible timing.
Well, thank you.
So we're still open for public comment. I don't know if Ed, if you want to take this is our state representative, Ed McBroom.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. I'm glad that I got a chance to finally make it to one of your meetings. Usually I'm in Lansing or on my way to Lansing when you have your meetings, so it's been a while since I've made it to one, but just basically come by to listen to hear what's going on. Certainly not the first citizen who's made comments recently about the fireworks situation. As the officer stated, there were some significant revisions to the original fireworks law in the last year that allowed for locals to have a lot more opportunity to restrict the usage of the fireworks than was in the initial law. So there have been some significant changes already. Not as enough according to some and too many according to others. All I can tell you too is, sir, about Ohio, I mean, they do even more there than we do here. So I can also tell you that something I noticed this year was that several cities, and potentially Gladstone as well, had people using display grade fireworks that have become available in Wisconsin or in Indiana. And so those ones that are really shaking your house are generally the display grade ones, which are still illegal in Michigan, except for a situation where you have a special permit like the city would have. So that's certainly something that needs to be monitored and watched, but I'm not exactly sure how you go about enforcing it except to drop in and ask to see what they're shooting. But I heard several people speaking on the street here in Gladstone before the parade about rigging up to getting the size core pipe they needed and everything in order to launch off the display grade fireworks such as the city has available. So I also heard that conversation in Norway. So
Steel mortar?
yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I'm certainly open to hearing suggestions and ideas. A number of us tried to move the time frame back to 11 o'clock rather than 1 o'clock during the last negotiation on that issue, and we didn't win out on that particular thing. We won on a few other things. As far as other issues around the state, I'm sure your city manager has filled you in on the additional revenues from the state this year. Not as much as, of course, we'd all like to see, but a significant increase nonetheless. Continue to be pleased with some of the progress we're making on reforms that are helping our area. Units of government, especially the counties, have received a lot better pay from the PILT payments, the payments in lieu of taxes, which hadn't been updated for over 30 years. And continue to try and see better things and more progress made on that front. And one last thing I'll mention from my recent work is the adoption of some changes to the graduation requirements. And that's been a pretty tough fight that we've had, but hopefully some additional flexibility now for school students is going to help. A lot of our schools around here that have had to mothball their technical education programs or shops.
Commissioner Gay and I just had a meeting with some school board members and the school superintendent about getting something off the ground here in our local area for vocational technical education. As you probably are aware, Governor Snyder said the community that puts that together will be the community that gains in jobs.
Yeah, and the governor has been amazing to watch kind of his move from when Tom and I first started lobbying him back in 2010 on this issue to the excited speech he made in favor of my legislation here a couple weeks ago. And certainly Superintendent Culbertus has been a huge ally in getting this done. along with many other teachers and superintendents throughout the area. So
They'd like to start a project, and we are very interested in partnering with them on that.
I hope that you'll consider not just how it could benefit Gladstone School District, but a lot of the surrounding area has, divested itself in the infrastructure needed to teach those classes over the last several years, as it became fewer and fewer students able to get into those classrooms. And so a lot of the schools need to find a way to bring that back. And some of them have just, mothballed the equipment, but other ones have sold it outright. And it's going to be tough to revamp a lot of those programs in short order.
There's an immense amount of potential for, as Mayor Mackey indicated, there's a lot of potential for what we can do here. I'm not really, personally, I'm not interested in following what somebody else does. I think we have the capability to pioneer it and be an example for what other school districts can follow. It would be kind of nice to be a,
Trendsetter?
trendsetter. There you go.
I'd love to see it. I'm trying to encourage you to just make sure that it's not, that it's as open door and cooperative as possible, and
As you know, Dr. Culbertus is a superintendent in Rapid River as
yep,
well.
absolutely.
And I, in my view, I don't see that it could possibly be a negative impact, considering the fact that we need to bring industry here, and if we can provide highly trained, skilled individuals to feed industry with the technicians and expertise that they need to function their business, we will have a draw for business. Seems pretty simple to me, but
I agree. It's a great opportunity. I wish we could have even gotten a few more changes. I think would have been even more significant. Right now, it's still a pretty narrow track, but it does allow some flexibility now. I'd be happy to take any other questions if you want to use me. Otherwise, I'll just go back to my seat and listen.
Representative, are we making any progress on our road funding
Road funding.
revenue?
Road funding's been probably the closest and yet the furthest we've been in my four sessions now in the legislature. The House of Representatives passed a significant road funding package that had zero revenue generation in it except for some fee increases and some fine increases. It utilized current revenues and general fund dollars and made almost all of that money come directly to road projects. So nothing other than pavement and bridges, basically, is what it boiled down to. 60% of the money we appropriate would have been for local roads agencies, whether it's city or county, and 40% would have been for MDOT. That package of bills went over to the Senate, where whatever happened, I couldn't exactly tell you, but it blew up. They decided that it wasn't good enough, and they were going to go for $1.7 billion rather than $500 million, and it included about 25-cent tax increase on top of other the fines and fee increases, and it didn't pass. I mean, it just fell on its face. It got voted on multiple times and failed, and it was pretty ugly. It was one of the ugliest things I've seen happen in Lansing, and right now it's kind of sitting there. They're doing a summer work group on it, seeing if they can't patch up some of the hurt relationships and stuff that happened over the whole issue. And I think there's still a good chance that something will pass this fall after the November elections, but I've kind of given up predicting exactly what's going to happen in Lansing. So I really think that there's a lot of good solutions out there that don't include huge revenue increases, but I do believe, and I do think that I could find us $1 billion of savings in Lansing and solve the road problem myself if I could prioritize all the funding Ed McBroom's way, but we got to work with a lot of other people, and when you put all that together, the amount of actual savings that can be agreed on by vote narrows down quite rapidly. So, but I do think that ultimately, my personal opinion and what I've tried to push in Lansing is that the solution to our infrastructure problems is already in front of us right at the gas pump. We pay more taxes at the gas pump than just about any other state, but less than half of what you pay at the gas pump ever makes it to a road. And until we fix that structural problem, it's going to constantly be a nightmare to try and actually generate the proper amount of revenue we need for roads. And in order to fix that problem at the gas pump, then we also have to fix our school funding problem, because they're linked together by the sales tax that we pay for gas at the pump that then goes forward to schools and some to local units of government. So it's really one of those generational changes we need, like we had with Proposal A, which fixed a property tax issue, fixed a school funding issue, wedded those together, and you know, now we're starting to see Proposal A after 20 years is starting to mature, needs some reform. We see our gas tax structure needs reform, and the two are linked together. And I believe we need that kind of comprehensive solution. Those have been proposed, I've been supportive, but we haven't been able to get the supermajorities that would be required to move that forward. We have to have a complete supermajority to get those kind of comprehensive solutions to actually move.
Any other questions?
I will bring up one other issue since we're talking taxes, and that's personal property tax reform. As you know, that'll be on the ballot here on August 5th. It's a significant change. We're the last state in the whole Midwest to have this kind of personal property tax going forward. You know, a tax that is keeping a lot of our industries from deciding whether or not they want to buy newer equipment or if they want to continue to use 50 or 60-year-old equipment. I met with one of your local machine shops here just this last week up in the industrial park, and we talked a lot about this issue. And any new investments they want to make, the tax jumps up significantly because of personal property tax. Fortunately, the package that first passed to repeal the personal property tax has been amended significantly to make sure that communities like Gladstone and others are assured of a full 100% replacement of that lost revenue from the PPT, and not just a statutory fix, but a constitutional fix. And that's why this vote on August 5th is so important.
You know, the Michigan Municipal League is asking all communities to support it.
Yes. So I won't belabor the point any further. I hope that you'll give it serious
The
consideration.
important point is full replacement revenue, because we find our public safety department, while we don't fully fund our public safety department with as many officers as we should be, they're taking more and more calls because the state police isn't available outside the corporate limits. And so that's a significant loss in revenue. And so if it's going to be completely replaced, we won't be going backwards. Probably won't be growing either, but...
And since you mentioned public safety, I will mention one other issue, because the first time I ever heard about it was from one of your public safety officers that I met here going door to door in Gladstone. And that's the issue of transporting mental health patients, especially when you have to take them downstate. And it's a very significant cost burden on your public safety department, state police, the sheriff's department, all units of government that have a police force right now are bearing a huge brunt of cost on that. I have requested a bill to reform that whole issue, to change the law so that there can be other options for transporting the mental health patients besides law enforcement. Probably won't, but you know, get it here in the next coming weeks to get it introduced, but to get it through both chambers before December is over is unlikely. But hopefully we'll have a few committee hearings on it, get the discussion going, and then be able to pass it relatively quickly in the next year. And I think it'll bring some real savings for all of our units of government that are dealing with this transporting issue.
Do you have a comment on that? You're looking at me.
It is a huge impact on not only our agency, but all the law enforcement agencies, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed. It's needed to be addressed for decades almost, and it's become more of an issue for us lately. We seem to have dealt with it more often, and the process takes even longer than what it used to. So anything that the legislature can help us out with that and free up patrol officers for what they should be doing, which is patrolling and handling complaints rather than transporting, mental health patients to various facilities throughout the state. I mean, it's something that we take people into protective custody. That is part of our duties, but the transportation of that person once a decision is made for placement somewhere is really beyond what our scope should be.
And your level of expertise.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really eye-opening when you understand that you're sending these men to handle somebody who's got a physical, mental impairment, and they're not necessarily experts on handling that person's medications or any other issues that come up.
Proper place to be transporting somebody for, 6 or 8 hours in a vehicle.
So
I used to work here when we had a director and 11 officers. Now we have a director and 8 officers. They're stretched pretty thin.
yeah,
When they have to go downstate, that's a long time for them to be out of community.
then you're down to 6.
It's expensive.
Thank you very much for
Thank you, Ed.
having me.
Thank you for coming. Any other public comment? Moving on to the consent agenda, which consists tonight of the City Commission regular meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2014, and our payment of bills.
I'd move that we approve as presented.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Matten, supported by Commissioner Gay to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried. We don't have any public hearings. We don't have any unfinished business. We move to new business, which consists, the first item is water and sewer pipe bids. Mr. Buckman.
Pipe bids were sent out for this year's so far projects that we know of. That's why I put a pipe bids -1, because we usually end up with a -2 and a -3. Most of this is for the 3rd Avenue, the highway railroad crossing, which is our second transmission main going up to our reservoir. The other part of it is for the Delta Avenue from Oak Street to the water plant. That's for water and wastewater. And then there's a few things for stock and some for some FEMA potentially funded projects that we have to finish up so far this year.
The
And,
freeze-ups from last winter, FEMA's, right?
Yeah.
Have we heard anything on,
I just got a notice today the state went through our first audit for Gladstone and turned down everything. And Escanaba, most of it, they didn't like the way we had presented it, so we're have to put things in, present it in a different way, so.
That's not FEMA, though. That's the state police.
Yeah,
Emergency
it goes to the
preparedness.
state police first. Now they do they do the first audit and then come up with a dollar figure for the county, and then it goes to the federal FEMA. So
we're in the we'll have to be in the process of resubmitting then?
yep,
Okay.
Mr. Beerbaum will be by my office at 4 tomorrow, and it'll be done. They don't.
Okay.
When they tell you you have to have it done, they give you about a day and a half. There's no.
Okay.
There's been some
We'll
long.
we know what you'll be doing tomorrow then.
Yeah, there's been some long evenings working on this. It seems like they've forgotten about the UP. A couple of times we've gotten emails like 4 days later than everybody else, and with deadlines, and it's been quite sad.
Any questions on the pipe bids?
Move to approve the low bid from Aetna Supply Company for $68,427.10.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Gay, supported by Commissioner Mattman to approve the water and sewer pipe bids as presented by our water and wastewater supervisor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried. Next item is authorize our city clerk to appoint election workers for the 8/5/2014 primary election. I believe that's the personal property tax issue.
One proposal on the ballot for August, but there's a lot of other
Local things.
local
Yeah.
and state, the primary things like that. But yes, I need election workers for precincts 1 and 2, and we will be holding an absentee voter counting board. Those are for the absentee ballots. So I need your authorization to appoint those workers.
I move approval.
I support.
Moved by Commissioner Nemetchek, supported by Commissioner Bostwick, to authorize the city clerk to appoint election workers for the 8/5/2014 primary election. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is technology use and electronic records policy. We all can read. The City of Gladstone has upgraded to a dedicated server for email and have found that we are in need of a technology use and electronic records policy for all employees. This policy, once adopted, would go into effect immediately, with all employees required to receive a copy and return the acknowledgement form to be placed in their individual personnel record file. In the absence of the city manager tonight, I think you're prepared to talk about that, Kim?
We worked on this. We are improving our technology. We're a little bit, kind of behind the game, I think, in some aspects, but this was a great improvement for us. But along with that also goes updating our policy. Our previous existing policy for computer use, including the title, was about 3 sentences. So this is a big improvement, that it actually has some instruction in it. We ran it by, we have Jim Pino with Big Smile Technology on as kind of our IT person, and he reviewed that with me in my office. We reviewed it at the supervisor level, made some changes to kind of tweak it to our smaller community, our smaller size, some flexibility, obviously with supervisors being able to, delete when they feel necessary and things like that, not have an automated way to do it. So it's a good start. It's probably, like technology, going to be changed and should be changed as we move forward. And if we find something's working or not working and we need to add to it or delete, we will do that and bring it before you again. So we got to start somewhere.
Questions from the commission?
Was there from another city or from another?
Yes.
Used as a sample? I mean, this is pretty detailed.
Yeah, there were several. We looked at, I went on the clerk's website and, downloaded a bunch of different policies, MML, kind of used a little bit of both. We tried to stay with a community our size, things like that. So yeah, we didn't recreate the wheel. We just
I'll move approval.
borrowed the wheel.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Nemetchek, supported by Commissioner Mattman, to approve the technology use in electronic records policy. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried. Next item on our agenda is MERS Health Savings Account for Teamsters Union. This is per the negotiations which we just concluded, Commissioner Gay and I and the city manager, to ratify a new Teamsters Union contract. The Teamsters represents our electric department, our water, and our wastewater, and our public works, and some people that work in our office. This was part of the negotiation. Is there anything further you'd like to add, Kim? Or?
It may look somewhat familiar. The supervisors group does have a participation agreement in place through their own contributions. So you have seen this type of thing before. And this is just per the union contract.
I move we approve the MERS participation agreement uniform resolution for the Teamsters Union employees.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Matt and supported by Commissioner Gay to approve the MERS Healthcare Savings Program for the Teamsters employees. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried. We have the final item of new business tonight is we've received a petition signed by a number of city residents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 city residents opposing chickens in the city of Gladstone. I think the appropriate thing for the city commission to do with this would be to forward it to the planning commission as they deliberate on a possible amendment to our ordinance that would eventually make its way back to us.
Right, I was on vacation. June 24th through the 30th, this was delivered to my office, so this is the commission meeting following that, so we can place it on the record that it was received. No action is needed or needs to be considered at this time, since it is already part of your plan to revisit that item. In my memo, I just want to correct one thing. We were working and we were trying very hard to get it to the July 28th meeting. That will not happen. It will be the August 11th meeting due to several factors that needed to kind of come before that. But also, as an update to the survey, we are conducting a survey on whether you're in favor or not in favor of having chickens. It is available on our website now. The notice will be in the paper, advertising that as well. If you go to gladstonemi.org, right under the news section, it's on there. So we're encouraging people to go on there, give us their input. There is a spot for open comments to participate in that, to give some feedback with that, and that will be presented as well at the August 11th meeting. Along with this petition has been shared with staff and
Planning
commission that is working on bringing you information back.
Quick
That
que-
will be the August 11th meeting.
Quick question, how do we verify that people leaving feedback on that survey are actually city residents?
There's several questions. We do ask a couple. Yes or no.
Right, but I understand we can ask a question, but how do we verify it? I guess is my question.
There is strategy when you're putting together the questions, and SurveyMonkey helps you do that in
Okay.
the way that you're asking some questions.
Because you
so
know what
that-
I'm getting at. I mean, anyone from,
Right, and
someone from Grand
that all
Rapids could theoretically.
Right. I have that all the time with, at election time or whatever, I have a Gladstone address. Well, but you don't pay your taxes to Gladstone, so you're in the township and things like that. So, but that went into with SurveyMonkey, that allows you to, in a certain way, ask the questions, and then when you analyze the responses too, there's a way to show if there's a shift in the numbers on different questions and things like that. So it's not like foolproof, whatever. There could still say yes, they're in the city, and they aren't actually, because we don't ask names. You're not required to give that. So
I've been keeping an eye on our Daily Press's online survey that's been actually ongoing longer than any survey that I've seen thus far, and it's generally maintaining a 60-40 in favor of allowing limited chickens in town, FYI.
Yep. We've been following that as well. And there was actually some
Thank you, Daily Press.
lengthy discussion on whether we should or shouldn't do our own, but we felt we should do our own too as well, and wanted to ask a couple different questions or more questions with that. So all of that will be presented at the August 11th meeting and brought back to you.
Are we limiting this just to chickens? Because I grew up with people raising pheasants, ducks, more than just chickens.
Right. The survey itself, because
The
it is
survey
called the
just
chicken
chickens.
survey.
I understand that, but I
Right.
mean, when we get all done and through,
Staff is talking about
and
that.
we take care of chickens, and then someone says, well, I can still raise ducks,
Right. If
or,
yeah, the language that would be proposed or not proposed, for
So we
changing
take
the
care of
ordinance.
fowl.
Right,
Okay.
right, would encompass all of that.
It's pretty common for people to raise pheasants.
Apparently, I'm learning more and more about
They just net the top.
Chickens.
Pheasants under glass.
I'm learning a lot through this process.
Maybe we
and-
can be genus specific
no
in our ordinance.
in the ordinance, sure. And Renee will be happy to
Phylum, genus, all that stuff.
I can't resist doing this. Rhett McBroom is the farmer. You must have some comment about chickens. No?
He'll take the survey. Yeah.
Very good. That'll be forwarded to the planning commission then?
Yes, and I just wanted, to place it on so that if the 9 residents that did, that, it was heard, it was brought forward, and will be part of the whole discussion.
Thank you. City managers reports. Do you have anything for us, Kim? No. I didn't know if she had anything she wanted you to forward.
You had some information that you saw in your packet. I
Right.
see she followed that up with an email, so if you have more questions, obviously she'll be back around to answer those, but.
She did send us a very preliminary look at our MERS contribution next year, which is going up.
Looked like it was roughly about $100,000 a year, roughly, maybe a touch more. And we're at 50% funding level.
Yeah.
Not good. She did also say that she was requesting a longer-term projection for MERS. So I'm sure there'll be more discussion about that at our next meeting. City Commission and committee reports and board and commission reports. Is anything from any of the other commissioners?
I asked our city manager to prioritize the 4 projects that we discussed, and so that we can get started on some of these. She called me and asked me if she could make it our next meeting. So at our next meeting, there will be, she will have the projects prioritized as to which is the most important, and I'm looking forward to that.
I did invite all the commissioners to a tour of the city that I conducted with the city manager and 3 city taxpaying residents. It started out with a comment from Mr. Thompson, Joe Thompson, that he heard what our priorities were, but he didn't feel that we had shared a lot of information about why those were our priorities. And so we took a tour of the city. We started out here at City Hall, and we went over the City Hall plan that we've been attacking as we can go forward. Commissioner Gay has been the most involved in that, in doing a lot of the capital work we need in this building, because we've made a commitment to the public that we're going to stay in this building. We were looking at possibly leaving this building, so we came up with a plan to start putting money back into this building. The people who took the tour didn't seem to think that was something they needed more information on. They could understand that. We went to Public Works. We looked at the building, which we have indicated we need to replace, and at our grader, bulldozer, backhoe, couple front-end loaders, several dump trucks, street sweeper, jet vector, solid waste removal trucks, and pointed out that we hadn't replaced anything major in over 10 years, and that every time they plow snow in the wintertime, there's major maintenance and downtime for equipment. I didn't hear a lot of comment on the need to start attacking replacing that equipment with some of our new revenue. There was some question about whether the Public Works building needed to be replaced. I intend to follow up with these gentlemen on that matter. From there, we went to Public Safety, where Officer Harris conducted a tour of Public Safety for the director, who was absent that day. Particularly our backup fire truck, and there's some significant input from these gentlemen on extending the life of our truck, which I'm going to get a hold of Mr. Thompson and ask if he'd like to attend a meeting of the Volunteer Fire Department to share his ideas with those gentlemen, because the major reason why we even put that in our list of capital items that needed to be done was because I had attended a Volunteer Fire Department meeting along with Commissioner Gay, and they pointed out to us that truck is 25 years old, and it can't perform like a new truck, obviously. So that was one of the items we identified with our increase in millage for the general fund, is to buy a new fire truck and be able to make the annual payments for that. As I said, there seems to be some question on whether that truck needs to be replaced. There was pretty much unanimous from these gentlemen that the final item we looked at doing, hiring another public safety officer, was something we need to do. I think they were very impressed by the fact that we have significant time now when we've only got one officer on duty, and that's just not a really good idea. And so they didn't have any concerns on that. So I would hope that the rest of the commission feels like I do. I know Commissioner Gay does, that that's something we definitely need to pursue going forward. And I know Darla has seen this item, so I'm sure there'll be more at our next meeting. And any other citizen who'd like to do that tour as well, see the capital facilities we have invested in and where we feel we need to put the newfound revenue on. Certainly, I can set up a tour. Commissioner Bostwick did join us for a short while on that tour, but then you went golfing. How did it turn out?
Not that good.
Not that good. You should have stayed on the tour. Okay, so that's, and then I do attend the Parks and Recreation Board meetings. I did just recently attend a planning commission meeting as well. It was a special planning commission meeting, but I don't get to too many of those. And of course, I go to the DDA meetings because as the mayor, I get to serve on the DDAs. I think that'd be it on those items. We'll go back to public comment. If there is any public comment at this point in time, Mr. Barnhart.
Unfamiliar as I am with public speaking, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Jerry Barnhart, Elm Street over in the east end of town. I want to talk about chickens. First, I want to talk about your survey. In a previous life, I was in a business where we did a certain amount of high-level data collection and like this. It's very difficult to ask me to fill out a survey about chickens in my neighbor's backyard if I've never lived in an area where my neighbor had chickens in their backyard. Okay? So, that's a validity problem that we all have when we start asking for data. And certainly we include the public's opinion, but remember, it looks an awful lot different if you've never been there. There's an awful lot of good ideas out there that weren't real good when they were across your fence. Secondly, in the early part of my adult life, I soldiered. And I soldiered for many, many, many years. And I spent about 20 years between Texas, Alabama, and Georgia, because you know they got a lot of army down there. And in the smaller towns in the era that I was down there, farm animals in town were common. Chickens, piggies under the porch, you ever heard that one? Put the pig under the porch and that's where all the scraps go and whatever. And as soon as the pig matures enough that his back scrapes the floor joist and bounces the porch, that's when he's harvested.
He becomes bacon, yeah.
Okay, so I have had personal experience with this in the past, and I'm going to tell you right now. Nobody wants 4 chickens that they can name and their children can go out and muck with them and their pets. They want a dozen good laying hens, and that requires a rooster. Roosters don't operate like Walt Disney. They don't crow once in the morning and shut the heck up. Because we know why the rooster's crowing, don't we? That's his harem. And he does announce that rather often. In fact, at times when you don't think he has to announce it. And he is next door. And I see a fella here with a smile on his face because he's been close to that much of his life. But not across the fence. Next door. Secondly, no matter how meticulous you are in your husbandry, there's no way in the world for the vermin and the predators not to start showing up if you got a chicken operation. Absolutely guaranteed. And you know the vermin and the predators don't recognize property lines. They don't know that that's your backyard when you let your dog out at 10 o'clock in the evening for its last trip, because they're on their way through your backyard to get to the chicken house to see if there isn't a lunch. Not a happy situation in town. Now, if we're out in the area that is zoned slightly different, well, then we all understand why we're there and we take measures. But Fifi can meet a lot of things in the backyard in the dark of the night if you got a chicken operation next door. And these vermin and these predators will know it's there.
I have 4 dogs, and where I live, there are raccoons. raccoons that like to travel the beach, and my dogs don't go out at night if I don't go out with them.
And skunk. Amen. on
A
the skunk.
raccoon would take a dog down in a heartbeat.
Yeah, skunk doesn't have to, but you wish it did.
My dogs don't get into skunks. I don't permit that. Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Blondie.
Nathan Belangi, 1401 Michigan. With all due respect, you're probably right for Texas or Tennessee or Alabama with the hogs under the porch or whatever you've seen. That's right. But Commissioner Gay has been to our residence and inspected our hen house, and I'm sure you can attest to how we keep it.
I fully intended to in my commissioner comments, yes.
And people do have 3 or 4 chickens and have their daughters go out and name them and turn them into pets, because that's exactly what our chickens are, and they are cleaned on a daily basis. And there is no difference between having a bag of chicken food in a enclosed bin in my garage than there is a little old lady with a bag of birdseed in her garage. No difference. There are going to be skunks and raccoons at bird feeders and squirrel food just as much. And even more so because the chickens are enclosed. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, moving on to city commissioner comments. We'll start at the end of the table with Commissioner Nemechek.
I made my comment earlier about talking to Darla about prioritizing. That was my main comment.
Commissioner Bostwick?
Yes. When we went and visited the DPW building, I am concerned about the equipment they do have, especially the snow plows and that definitely need replacing. So I just hope that does get considered as a prioritization.
As I said, I don't think the gentleman who made the tour felt there was any doubt that the equipment was old.
Right. So I just hope that gets prioritizing too, not only with like the police officer and the DPW building, but I definitely think we need some new equipment.
We did receive a we did receive a preliminary plan from staff before we voted that night, and I think the plan will look similar to that. It needs more fleshing out, as it were. But moving on to Commissioner Gay.
Well, let's deal with chickens first. I did visit Mr. Belangi's home. I probably spent at least 45 minutes there because I was interested in how he was keeping, how he designed his pen, everything else. What impressed me the most was the amount of research that he did on urban farming. It's very common. I sent Renee links to, I believe it was 4 or 5 cities in the state of Michigan, one of which was Holland, another one was Ann Arbor, and a couple of, Ferndale I believe was one. I can't remember I think the other one may have been Midland. Major cities. I don't know if you've ever been to Holland, Michigan, but it's arguably one of the most beautiful cities in the state. They all have chicken ordinances that are very similar to what we had discussed, which expressly prohibited roosters. Roosters are not required to produce eggs, correct? They're not required. I was very impressed with the way his particular pen, his coop, was set up. It was specifically designed to prevent vermin, predators, everything else. As he had indicated, his daughters named the chickens their pets, and there's a significant interest throughout the country in knowing where your food comes from. It's becoming more popular now. Ann Arbor is Ann Arbor. If something like this is doable in Ann Arbor, I can't figure. I have no doubt that we can come to an agreement to where it's at least an option in the city of Gladstone. I don't. I believe some of the things that some of your concerns we discussed pretty thoroughly as we looked at the previous proposed chicken ordinance, and some of the things that we directed staff that we'd like to see in another one that came back, so we can make sure that we don't have those problems, because I don't want a rooster raising heck at 5 o'clock in the morning either. That's going to irritate me just as much as it would irritate you. And I have dogs as well, and I don't want to have to deal with the peroxide and the homegrown mix to get rid of them because there's skunks all over the place. We have enough skunks as a result of garbage, not people leaving garbage here and there. So I think we can do it in a manner that is fitting for a city, as long as people follow the criteria set forth in the ordinance. I don't see it being a problem. It's been done very successful throughout the country in much larger cities, more densely populated areas than this. So.
Just make one comment. Please don't misinterpret what I said. I am not saying no under no circumstances. This gentleman understands husbandry. He takes personal responsibility and he monitors what he does.
Yep.
Wonderful. And an ordinance that allows that is wonderful. But he might be an exception.
Well, if you put forward an ordinance, as we've seen with the RV ordinance, we've had some people that are displeased with the RV ordinance. We went through as a commission and we got to an agreement, came to an agreement that we thought was fair and met the stated goal, which was to improve our city for both public safety and the travel on the roads. And I believe we did a good job. Now there's some people that have maybe not paid that close attention to the wording of the ordinance and didn't follow it and were dealt with by our code enforcement officer or our public safety officers, and they're unhappy about that, but that's the way it is. You write an ordinance, we come to an agreement, here's the rules, you got to follow the rules, otherwise you have to deal with the gentleman and lady that work for our director or our code enforcement officer, and I agree. So I would encourage you to when we do, I believe the clerk said August 8th. August 11th is when they're going to bring back an ordinance for the commission to look at. I would encourage you to come in, because we have everything that you mentioned and we're concerned about. We've discussed, and I believe will be addressed in the proposed ordinance. So because we don't want that type of thing either.
When you had contacted me about the chicken the chicken ordinance, you also addressed marketing.
Yes. It's. I made a comment to Mayor Mackey that I believe that stuff like this, prohibiting, looking at or enforcing an ordinance that, in my opinion, my person without a Juris Doctorate legal opinion, may have some holes, may be questionable. I think being heavy-handed on things like that, when we can actually come together and put forward an ordinance that allows, within reason, for people to do the things that they want to do in the city, I think something like that would push someone away from Gladstone more than higher taxes. That's my opinion. I could be right, could be wrong, don't know, but that's my opinion. I think people live in the city, they expect certain things. There's a lot of advantages to living in the city. And I think that the more heavy-handed that we are with things like that we could actually come together and agree on, rather than just ignore, I think that would keep people in the city and wouldn't discourage growth in the city. I don't think it would be detrimental to growth. The other item I wanted to talk about was I had spoke with. Yes. Sure.
The directive at that meeting was not to go write an ordinance allowing for it. It was to gather data, bring back the information that staff was looking at.
So you're not going to be
to
bringing
clarify,
an
yeah,
ordinance.
there's not going to be a proposed ordinance on the table on August 11th for your consideration. Those are not the steps that had been taking place,
Okay.
but all of the data leading up to previous years when there was a proposed,
Right.
one. So just to clarify, if you're
Okay.
expecting an ordinance
So
on the table,
we may be going through the ordinance process as a result of that
Correct.
conversation that we have on the 11th.
Yes.
Okay. The other item I wanted to discuss a little bit was I spoke with Director Geyer at prior to the 4th of July parade. I was very happy with his having resolved a issue that came up in regards to response time. And I was curious, he had mentioned at that time that we did have a police mutual aid agreement. Okay, I'm not familiar, I don't believe since I've been on the commission that I've seen any of the details of the police agreement. The fire I have, but as far as the policing, I haven't seen any, I don't recall seeing the mutual aid agreement. I'm a little curious on that, just as a result of that particular situation, because I just as with the process that we went through with the solid waste, where, you know, we went away from a millage amount to a fee amount. You know, you could look at it, you could characterize it that city residents are paying for PSOs to do work outside of the city. That could be a fair statement. Agreed? So I'm just curious as to how that's written and, you know, what the criteria is that sends our PSOs outside of the city limits, because I think that's something that needs to be looked at.
Basically, I mean, I can get you the copy of the agreement, but basically what it is it's a request for help and
They have
and our ability to be able to respond. If we wouldn't leave the city without any staffing.
Okay.
So if we have 2 people on, one may go to handle, if it's near outside the city and there's a request made by the state police or the sheriff's department because they don't have personnel to be able to respond, if it's say in Kipling, just outside the city, or Westridge Heights, we might send both officers temporarily there to get control of a situation, and then we would respond back. It's
I think the nature of the question is more along the lines of us being the first response when other agencies are supposed to be the first ones responding.
And that's what I was going to get to is, you know, I don't, I have a problem with city residents paying for a service for people who don't live in the city. It's not that I wouldn't, you know, my background, it's not that I wouldn't want us to assist someone where we're needed, but at the same time, for a regular call where it's not an emergency situation, that's kind of what I would start to question. Should we be taking those calls? And if so, I mean, is there any method for covering our costs? Because just like everything else, it has a cost. And the city residents are paying for it. They're paying for a service that's given to someone who doesn't pay the same taxes that residents of the city do. So that's where I'm kind of going with that. So if
Just so that everybody understands, when our public safety does take a call outside the city, there's no reimbursement formula in place, correct?
with the firefighting mutual aid agreement, if the township.
I'm talking about police response, not fire response.
No, I know, correct, there is not at this point. There is provisions in the firefighting one if there's a cost recovery ordinance. We have, however, received reimbursement in mutual aid responses, law enforcement related before, but it was not by the agency, it was by convicted suspect that was ordered restitution for.
Judge Van Galen said you owe him, right?
Yeah.
I have one final question. Director Geyer, what is the criteria for emergency vehicles responding in an emergency situation, running lights and siren as far as speed over posted speed limit? The only reason I'm asking that is because I've had multiple complaints as a result of a incident in Escanaba last week. If I recall, I thought it was 15 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. Typically, is that a wives' tale, or?
I assume that since we didn't assist with that, it's not complaints regarding.
It's not regarding Gladstone Public Safety. No.
There is no law. There might be specific policies that each department may have, or each insurance carrier for a department may have, but there is the Public Act 300, which is the Michigan Vehicle Code, does not place a restriction on speed. They allow the posted speed to be exceeded for legitimate responses. However, that's with the due care and caution with regard to public safety. So you could be doing 35 and a 25, but if it's not safe to do so, and it results in an accident or an injury, that would be, there would be negligence on that part, or, there could be.
Criminal
So
and civil?
There is criminal and civil, but there is no limit beyond the posted speed limit that I'm aware of for anything that's in the statute.
It may have been an agency policy that I recalled, and I believe it was 15 miles an hour over. I guess the complaints I received, and I can't quantify them because I wasn't standing there, the complaints I received were at least doubling the speed limit in a residential area on Lakeshore. So,
Commissioner Gay,
yes, sir.
I have addressed this issue personally.
Have you?
I have gone to the state police post.
Okay.
There is no limit. I have grandchildren that played in my yard when they went by my house with the 4-barrel kicking in before they even got to my house. They had to be going 60 and 70 miles an hour in front of my house.
So they're tripling the speed limit.
Oh, they are. I would think that double would be plenty. I know when we had the ambulance service, it was like 10 or 15.
I also saw the same thing you saw, and I had a conversation with our public safety director. I know you followed up with that particular police agency.
I did speak
What I said to you is when I worked here, I remember Director Walter, who you used to work for, I remember him saying many times when I worked here to the officers, please make sure you get there. And I think you probably reminded that agency of that fact. It's really kind of coincidental. Just tonight on the news, a Marquette police cruiser just got in an accident that another agency had to police because you farm it out to someone else. And just recently, a Chocolate Township police car also got in an accident. So I'm sure you preach it to our guys. I know you do.
The driver of that Chocolate Township car was cited in the accident. I mean, we're not infallible to where we're not going to make driving errors, but we do, at least in my own department, we do reiterate the fact that you need to be, operating the equipment with due care and caution for the rest of the motoring public. As a basic way to put it.
My old county of residence, there have been 2 fatalities as a result of police chases, both involving MSP. And the fatalities have both been people who were not subjects of the chase. So hopefully, unfortunate circumstances hopefully will spawn at least a little bit more.
There is a statewide training program taking place right now that's called Below 100, and it focuses on trying to get law enforcement line of duty deaths below 100 in the calendar year. That hasn't happened since I believe the 1940s. And much of that course, which half of my department has gone through, is focused on vehicle operation and the dangers of that. Because the number of line of duty deaths for law enforcement officers is related to vehicle operation is well above the number related to either gunshots or knife assaults or anything like that. So.
The most dangerous situation for any police officer is a traffic stop, by far. So
it is being addressed in some way, and I think we in the law enforcement industry recognize that there has been a concern or an issue. The specifics of that day, that would have to be dealt with by their agency, but I understand your concern, especially on Lakeshore Drive and 9th Street, which are 2 of the main avenues to get out of town, so to speak, for both our agents, for both of the agencies that function within the city.
I'd be very surprised to see a Gladstone car doing what I've seen some others do.
I've lived here 7 years. I haven't seen it yet. So
Anything else, Commissioner Gay?
no, that's it.
Commissioner Mattman?
And nothing, thank you.
Okay, I got several things. First of all, I got an email from Pastor Paul Culbertson. He's the new pastor at Grace Church. I returned his comments. He basically wants to make a contact and see if he can help our community in any way. I certainly welcome that. I'll let you guys know what the result is when he contacts me back. Commissioner Gay talked about response time in a public safety incident. If the citizen is listening tonight, that was forwarded to the public safety director, and it was handled very well in my opinion. So it wasn't ignored. We also received a complaint about ORV notice from a gentleman at our last meeting. That was followed up on by staff immediately. Talk about the tours. I received a letter from a citizen who stopped at my house one day and had a number of items they wanted to talk about. And I asked them for a letter. I will forward that letter to the rest of the city commissioners so you can read it. You can decide where we want to go with that. Final item, I received a message on the web server from a resident near the wastewater plant yesterday about noxious odors. I went down to their house. There weren't odors at the time. Shortly after I left, apparently the odors showed up again, according to the first party, and then I received a second one today, and I asked that party if they wanted to attend the meeting tonight. They'd be more than welcome. I understand they have spoke with Mr. Buckman, and they're told that we need to make an investment in some of our equipment in order to control the odors. I'm getting a blank look. Okay. One of them said they did, but I don't know that for sure. They've asked if the city commission would tour the wastewater facility. So the reason why I bring this up tonight is perhaps you could organize a meeting where the city commission could attend a tour of the wastewater facility. And
We've already done that. I have. I wasn't alone.
well, I've been in there many times.
No,
It's
but I
nothing
mean,
new to me,
we went around with Darla and went around all the facilities. Eric showed us through.
Well, what I am going to do is I'm going to forward these to Mr. Buckman and ask that you contact the two parties and have a conversation with them and see if you can resolve the matter. Sound okay to you?
We have some seasonal maintenance issues that we're working on right now. We have one of the biodish shafts down for repair.
Can I just forward these to you? And
Yeah.
okay, I've got them right here in hard copy, so I will give them to you after the meeting tonight. That is everything I received. So we're up to city clerk comments.
Just a reminder, if you have a burning desire to be an election worker, I would be happy to talk with you about that. It is an interesting process, more than just obviously coming in, casting your ballot. You can see the other side of how it happens. You do get paid a little bit of money to do that, to work at it. And the election training is still available for this August election. So if people are interested, please contact me. I did attend, I think Commissioner Bostwick was there. I thought I saw you for the Gladstone Volunteer Firemen's Golf Scramble. And it was very good, a lot of fun. I think they had a good turnout. I didn't hear numbers again, but it seemed like they had just as many, if not more, as that than they did the last 2 years. This was the third year, so.
It's a fundraiser for them to buy equipment, right?
Right. So it was a very good event held out at the Gladstone Golf Course. So just thought they should get a good job. They did a good job. It was a good event. So that's it.
Nothing further from the commission. We will stand adjourned. Good evening.